Our final speaker is Dr. Cohen, who is a psychiatrist of many years' experience, and as well as the areas that have been referred to already this evening. He may well want, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I know you have a particular specialism in eating disorders. Pardon? Addictions. Okay. Well, I'll leave you to talk about your areas of expertise, but it was a pleasure that you were able to join us this evening, and we look forward to your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody. I'm Robert Cohen. I'm a psychiatrist. And one of the questions, we've been talking about various aspects this evening. We've been talking about stigma. Why should there be stigma against psychiatric patients? Well, for a very simple reason, isn't it? Because they're not real illnesses. When you start working in psychiatry, you realize very, very quickly how other people in society see not only the patients, but also the doctors. Now, am I a real doctor? Well, I can tell you that Dr. Marshall qualified in 1985 from the Middlesex Hospital. She has a University of London degree in medicine, MBBS, correct? I qualified from the Royal Free in 1985. I have a University of London degree in medicine, MBBS. So yes, we are real doctors. So the question you then have to ask is, if we're real doctors, are we actually treating real illnesses? And it's because people don't think that psychiatric illnesses are real illnesses. They don't think that the illnesses are real. It's all in the mind. That's the sort of thing that people used to say. Well, it isn't. The fact of the matter is that over many, many years, we have learnt a great deal about illnesses and what they are and how they function. And we are treating real illnesses. So let me just start off this part of it by saying, real illness, how do we know? Schizophrenia, this is one of the most tragic illnesses that can afflict anybody. I mean, all illnesses are terrible to the person who's suffering them, but schizophrenia is a terrible illness. It's an illness where you have repeated episodes, and sometimes they don't actually stop, of experiences that are very, very unpleasant. You hear voices when there's nobody there. You start to have beliefs that are completely make no sense. What I mean by that is we've had people, when I started in the 1980s, the IRA were very, very prominent. Some of you may recall that. And anyone who had any Irish connection who came into hospital assumed that the IRA were after them. And you'd ask, what's so important about you? And they were just Tom, Dick or Harry. But they had this definite belief that they were so important, not grandiose importance, but they were so important that the IRA were going to go and pursue them. And then perhaps wanted to kill them. And they were scared stiff of this. Or you may have people who would say things like, I hear my father talking. Okay, you hear your father talking. Where's your father? Oh, we're in London, but my father's in India. No? How does that happen? The answer is it doesn't. And you then turn around and say, well, okay, as a psychiatrist, all you've got to go on is what the person tells you. It's not quite true, but let's just start with that. You've only got what the person tells you. But in terms of our knowledge and understanding, if I hear one person tell that, or if you heard one person say, you may say, well, okay, I don't know whether it's real or not. But if you start working in psychiatry and you're working in casualty and people are coming in and they're coming into the wards and they're coming into A&E and they're all telling you the same story. Of course, it is possible that I'm sitting in casualty waiting for people to come and there's a little conspiracy outside thinking, oh, let's all go in and tell Dr. Cohen the same story and he'll think there's an illness. But the reality is it's extremely unlikely that that's the case because people tell us the same story again and again and again. So psychiatric illnesses are real. They very much exist. They are terrible illnesses. They affect functions of the body that we take for granted. If you've got a broken leg, you can see that the bone is in, say your thigh bone, which should be in one piece, is in two pieces. Very easy to understand. Fantastic skill from the orthopedic surgeons to put it back together again. I'm not knocking it at all. But the fact is it's conceptually very easy. But trying to understand mental functions and how they go wrong, that's really hard to do. When you think about dementia, for example, has it crossed your mind that we have these tremendous mental functions to be able to do things? Our brains. We all did this today. I can see you all got your arms in sleeves. We all had a situation where we got up, we put our arm through the sleeve of our shirt or dress or whatever we're wearing, and we took it for granted. But your brain has to calculate not only how to move your arm, that's easy, but it has to work out where in space the sleeve is that you're going to put your arm in. So that is an amazing function that we take for granted. And of course, one of the things that is a general principle in medicine is if it's there, it can go wrong. We talked about the leg. You break your leg, you can't walk properly. The same with all mental functions. So of course, as mental functions deteriorate, you may find somebody who's not able to put their arm in their sleeve properly, or they're not able to do their buttons up properly because they can't calculate it anymore. And sometimes you see people who've got clear dementia who are not able to dress themselves properly because those functions are going. So mental illness is very, very real. And it's only by us asserting and telling everybody and making it clear that mental illnesses are as real as other illnesses. I don't say other physical illnesses because psychiatric illnesses are illnesses that relate to the brain, the mind, and the brain and mind function. And just as other parts of the body, if your heart is not functioning properly, of course it's nice and easy to understand, you'll die fairly quickly because you're not pumping blood around the body, it's a failure of function. If you have a failure of mental function, then you're also going to have problems, and they're just as real. So until we can get the message out clearly that the illnesses that are left under the aegis of us psychiatrists are real, we are going to have people being stigmatized. Both the doctors, that's not so important, we can live with it, but also the patients who need proper care and attention. So let me just go into my own area a little bit more, because I specialise in treating people with addictive disorders. And again, the problem here, somebody takes too much alcohol, somebody takes heroin, and the government turn around and say, well, of course, it's all a self-inflicted condition, it's up to them, let them just say no, pull themselves together and get better. Well, I can tell you, their knowledge base is absolutely zilch. Turning around and saying, just say no, doesn't work. Some of you will remember the campaign of the government in the late 1980s. Heroin, just say no. Let me tell you about heroin addiction. Heroin addiction, in the 1990s, the US government made a decision that they were going to have a decade of the brain in terms of their research. The National Institute of Health in America, which has this vast amount of funding, thank God, decided they were going to look into this. They have a National Institute of Mental Health, and they have a subsection of that called the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and they gave that a huge amount of money to investigate. And what became very, very clear is that there is a part of the brain that is malfunctioning in the case of the addictions. This part of the brain, called the reward pathways, is absolutely crucial. It is a part of the brain that is affected by hunger, by thirst, as in thirst for water, by sex, by social activities like being stroked, somebody smiling at you, and by music. It's probably got other functions, but there's the ones I know in terms of having evidence. And the important thing is, what you can see is all those functions are functions that if we don't follow, we won't stay alive. It is your reward pathways that say, you better have something to eat today, because if you don't eat, obviously you won't survive. Same with water. And same with the social interactions. So this part of the brain is absolutely crucial to our development and to our staying alive. They did further research, and what is very clear is in the case of people with addictive disorders, that area of the brain is not functioning properly. It's either over-functioning, over-responsive, which means it's understimulated, or it's simply not functioning well enough. What is interesting is that all the drugs of abuse, so nicotine, alcohol, heroin, cocaine, all of those act on that reward pathways. So just follow the logic through. You have a part of the brain that is not functioning properly. That part of the brain is crucial to your survival. There is something that you can take that will make that part of the brain, which is not functioning, start to work properly. What is the logical thing to do? The logical thing to do is to take it. Now, at risk of a quote that would be unkindly taken out of context, but there may be an element of truth to it. For somebody who's a heroin addict, taking heroin at the time they take heroin is not a ridiculous thing to do. It's actually something that will save their life. So we are dealing with something that is much more complex than saying just say no. This is going to save your life. Oh, just say no. Sorry, I can't. The government told me not to do it. So we are dealing with conditions that are very serious, that have biological components, and yet people outside are saying, no, we don't need to worry about this. We don't need to take the doctors seriously. It's a great shame because this is something where we actually have enough knowledge that if we got enough funding, we could actually search for a cure. So in terms of what psychiatrists do and what I do, we need to bear in mind that psychiatric illnesses are real illnesses. Just like any other medical condition that is treated, we need to stop being biased against certain conditions and pro other conditions. We need to make sure that both treatment of psychiatric illnesses is properly funded and is taken seriously. Thank you very much.